I built my entire life from absolute nothing in the sun-drenched hills of Calabasas, California, spending 80 grueling hours every single week constructing a premier wealth management firm, while foolishly believing my marriage to Sarah was an ironclad sanctuary of unwavering loyalty. But absolute trust makes a man completely blind to the sharp knife until it is already buried deep between his shoulder blades. For 6 long years, I genuinely believed Sarah was my ultimate rock, the stunning and fiercely supportive wife who proudly cheered on every late-night corporate victory, managed our sprawling suburban home, and made our quiet evenings feel like a peaceful sanctuary. But that beautiful illusion completely dissolved on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon when my sharp chief financial officer flagged a series of strange tax discrepancies that made no mathematical sense. When I quietly hired an elite independent forensic accountant to dissect our personal joint holding accounts under the initial assumption of a simple clerical error. The resulting paper trail unveiled an elaborate cold-blooded scheme of financial devastation that chilled me straight to the core. Sarah had not just been making careless purchases over the weekend, she had been systematically draining my hard-earned life savings for over 18 consecutive months, using skillfully forged signatures, unauthorized wire transfers, and complex shell corporations to quietly siphon over $4 million directly out of my primary corporate accounts. She was not merely stealing my money, she was actively using my sweat and sacrifice to fund an unbelievably lavish secret fantasy lifestyle for a 30-year-old personal trainer named Julian, buying him a brand new matte black sports car, paying the sky-high monthly lease on his downtown penthouse apartment, and funding luxurious 5-star vacations to Cabo and the Amalfi Coast under the fake guise of her weekend wellness retreats. The raw, emotional heartbreak hit me like a sudden physical blow right to the chest, leaving me gasping for air alone inside my private corner office, as I came to the agonizing realization that every passionate kiss, every comforting smile, and every sweet promise of forever had been nothing more than a calculated lie designed to keep me working myself into an early grave while she systematically dismantled my entire existence. Instead of confronting her in a blind fit of screaming rage and foolishly tipping my hand before I had full legal leverage, I forced my trembling hands to stay completely steady, locked my crushing grief deep inside a cold, dark compartment of my mind, and immediately hired a former federal investigator alongside a team of top-tier aggressive litigation attorneys to quietly orchestrate a silent, destructive counterstrike against them both. My private investigator moved with terrifying efficiency, installing microscopic high-definition cameras inside key areas of our gated suburban home, including our private guest suite, and discreetly attaching a high-tech satellite tracking beacon beneath the rear bumper of her luxury SUV. Within less than 48 hours, the live camera feed on my encrypted phone began capturing sickening, irrefutable evidence of their betrayal taking place right in my own home while I was supposedly away on extended business trips across the country. Watching the live video stream from a cold hotel room 3 miles down the freeway, hearing her laugh mockingly about how soft, gullible, and clueless I was, while she uncorked a $500 bottle of my prized collector wine for her broke, young lover, transformed my shattered, wounded heart into absolute, unyielding glacier ice. Over the next 3 grueling weeks, while pretending to be the exact same loving, attentive, and oblivious husband who lovingly brought her fresh espresso in bed every single morning, my aggressive legal team worked around the clock, painstakingly mapping every single illegal financial transaction. They traced every single fraudulent wire transfer, connected every forged signature to notarized bank forms, and linked her secret personal bank transfers directly to grand larceny, wire fraud, and felony identity theft charges. During this thorough forensic investigation, we uncovered an even more insidious plot, as Sarah had actually initiated paperwork to illegally transfer the full title of our $15 million primary Calabasas mansion into an offshore revocable living trust under her sole name, forging my official signature on notarized county documents, which crossed the line from civil divorce dispute straight into major federal bank fraud and grand felony theft. Instead of halting her immediately, my legal team advised me to let her finish submitting the fraudulent documents because completing the illegal transaction would lock in mandatory minimum state and federal prison sentences with zero room for legal technicalities or leniency. The dramatic climax of this nightmare unfolded on the warm evening of our 7th wedding anniversary when Sarah invited Julian over to our house, believing I was trapped in New York City on an urgent multi-day emergency board meeting, planning to celebrate what she believed was the successful final transfer of my entire liquid investment portfolio into her offshore holding account. Sitting in the back of a blacked-out surveillance van parked 2 houses down our quiet palm tree-lined street, I watched through the hidden living room camera as they poured vintage champagne, laughing loudly, as Julian arrogantly bragged about how easy it had been to strip an educated, wealthy man of his entire fortune. At precisely 8 o'clock in the evening, I walked casually through the front door of my own home, accompanied by 2 armed uniformed sheriff deputies, my lead forensic litigation attorney, and a licensed court process server holding a massive, thick stack of binding legal documents. The color completely drained from Sarah's face in an instant as her full champagne glass slipped through her trembling fingers, smashing violently against the pristine white marble entryway floor, her airbrushed fake confidence instantly evaporating into pure, blinding panic. Julian scrambled frantically off the designer sofa, attempting to act intimidating until the armed deputies stepped forward with hand on holster, ordering him in a stern command to sit down, shut his mouth, and keep his hands completely visible. I walked into my living room, stood directly in front of them, and looked my wife dead in the eye, without showing a single trace of anger, fear, or hesitation, as my attorney presented her with an official copy of an emergency ex parte court order, freezing every single bank account associated with her name. Because she had actively engaged in grand felony theft and identity fraud against marital assets, my legal team had successfully secured an immediate emergency injunction that froze all marital assets, repossessed the sports car parked in my driveway, and placed a lien on Julian's downtown penthouse lease as direct proceeds of criminal activity. Under strict state family laws regarding deliberate fraudulent conversion of community assets, her treasonous acts completely voided any legal claim she had to spousal support, alimony, or any percentage of our estate, leaving her entirely exposed to full restitution lawsuits and severe criminal prosecution. When Julian suddenly realized that his luxurious gravy train had not only crashed, burned, and exploded, but that he was formally named as a primary co-defendant in a multi-million-dollar civil lawsuit designed to reclaim every single dollar ever spent on him, he folded like a cheap deck of cards, instantly turning on Sarah and screaming at the police officers that she was the criminal mastermind who had manipulated, coerced, and forced him into taking the stolen money. Sarah broke down into hysterical, uncontrolled weeping, falling to her knees on the cold floor, begging me for forgiveness, claiming that she had suffered a terrible mental breakdown, that she still loved me deeply, and that we could somehow work through this together and rebuild our relationship. I simply stood over her with calm, detached coldness, looking at the woman I had once cherished like gold, and whispered softly that my trust, like her personal freedom, was gone forever and would never return. The sheriff deputies placed heavy steel handcuffs around her wrists, arresting her on multiple felony counts of grand theft, felony forgery, identity theft, and organized financial fraud, while a flatbed tow truck backed down my driveway to haul away the luxury sports car I had unwittingly purchased for her treacherous young lover. Because of my meticulous planning patience and ironclad legal counterstrike, every stolen cent was frozen, clawed back and restored to my private accounts, while Sarah was left facing up to 15 years in state prison with zero wealth, zero husband, and a disgraced reputation that would follow her for the rest of her life. As the police cruisers pulled away into the quiet suburban night, leaving me standing alone in the peaceful silence of my grand home, I took a deep breath, feeling no bitterness or remorse, only the pure, overwhelming relief of a man who had survived the ultimate betrayal, outsmarted his enemies at their own dirty game, and reclaimed complete, total, and absolute control over his entire future destiny.